Alright, so moving on to episode 3, entitled Hothead. This one... Okay, someone didn't mention in the first episode that Clark wanted to play football. But because of his abilities, Jonathan doesn't want him to play football. In this episode, though, he does sort of get to play football. It's found out that the coach of the football team is giving the answers to tests to his football players so that they pass and can keep playing football. Now, I understand that schools, I never played any sports. So, I never had to worry about it, but schools require you to keep certain standards when you go play a sport. Like, you have to have at least a B, I think, to play a sport, which I never got. Why do you need to have good grades to play sport? And I don't know. I'm not going to get into all that, but because of this, though, Principal Kwan, I think his name is, he suspends most of the football team, the 7 members of the football team that, did it. So, the principal needs new players, and Clark becomes one of those players. It is shown to us that the coach, Walt, has pyrokinetic powers because his sweatbox, or sauna, whatever, contains meteor rocks. And when he uses the sauna, it gives him these pyrokinetic powers. He uses them against Principal Kwan. He survives because Clark saves him, and he puts Clark on the team. Not because of that, but he puts Clark on the team. And it causes problems between Clark and Jonathan because Jonathan doesn't want to play because of, his powers. But Clark says he can keep them under control, which I think he can. In season 4, he does play football again, but they sort of drop it after this. In other stories, Lana has quit being a cheerleader, and she has decided to pick up a job. She's waitressing at the Beanery, and she's not very good at it. Lex Luthor having problems with his father because, what's his name, Dominic Santori, who works for his father, comes to him and tells him that his father wants to fire 20% of his workforce. But Lex decides he wants to hire 20% more of a workforce. And it leads to a fencing match between father and son, which Lex ultimately loses because I believe Lionel cheats and says you have to fire 20% of your workforce. Well, he comes up with a plan later that needs him to keep all his workforce while also boosting it up by 20%, so it works out. This whole Lana thing, and we're getting to that at the beginning. There is a funny scene where she walks up to Lex and she asks what he wants, and he's like, I better put my cappuccino in a styrofoam cup. And then Clark walks in, he orders a coffee. They're talking. Lana comes back with the orders and sets them down. She sits next to Clark and they're talking, and she's like, I gotta get back to work, so she leaves. She asks Lex how his is. She takes a drink. He's like, it's perfect. And she leaves, and he's like, is that even what you ordered? And Lex is like, not at all. He ordered a cappuccino with some weird foam thing with a cherry on top. I don't know what it is, but weird. Damn it. So things come to a head when Chloe videotapes the coach going nuts and causing this nuts on the football players on the football field, causing the sprinklers to go from water to fire, which couldn't actually happen because there's already water coming out of the sprinklers, and no amount of pyrokineticism can turn water into fire. It doesn't work that way. What happens is she records it, and this gets her in trouble. One of the football players, Clark goes to talk to one football players who's, sort of tapped by the coach. He's got a burn mark on his arm in the shape of like this, in the shape of the coach's hand. And so Clark confronts the coach, and then we find out that there's meteorites in the sauna. Clark gets weak. And it's weird because he walks up and he stands there for like 30 seconds before, he confronts you. Coach, we need to talk. And then all of a sudden, shh, it glows, and he gets locked in there, and eventually his dad finds him, or Jonathan finds him, and the coach tries to take him down, but Clark gets his strength back and throws the coach. The coach ends up burning himself alive, which I thought was weird. There's a cool scene earlier. I was playing this earlier in the episode. When the coach tries to recruit Clark, he says that football is in his genes, and that's when Clark says, "I'm adopted." So, the coach puts fire everywhere, and Clark just walks through it. And here, unlike when he saves Whitney, his jacket gets cut off, or he takes it off. And the coach is like, "How did you do that?" And he says, "It's in the genes." And then the coach just sets himself on fire, I guess. They never see him again, so I assume he's dead. And you get the story wrap-ups and everything. Lana was fired from the beanery. They both yell. It's a decent episode. Never been one of my favorites, but it's still pretty good. Again, the first season, there isn't really an overarching story. We get more of an overarching story in season 2. Once you start talking about, and when you get to Virgil Swan and the Kawachi Caves, and you start talking about Jor-El and all that. But here, it's basically Freak of the Week episodes for most of the season. They're still trying to, get into their niche. So, but it's still decent. So what are your thoughts on the episode Hothead? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you.